All right, gang. So today, it's only 94 pages, so I should be able to finish this in 40 minutes without any stress. But of course, we'll see how that goes. So this is the walkthrough for 24.1 major release, and um, like everything, this is always subject to change. I can tell you if you go to the bottom, which is what I always recommend, you can see if there's a change log. In this case, there's not a change log. It's also important to note that this is not a pre-release notes. These are the actual Encompass release notes. So what that means in English is that we're fairly certain all this stuff is going to come into production, but I will tell you that historically speaking, because this is a .0 at the end, that means that in my experience, that means testing is not completed. As a reminder, this is going into testing environments on March 9th and production of environments as of as of April 6th. And if we come back over into release notes, you can see that they still have April 6th here for production. So having said all that, what we see in table of contents is we've got some stuff to the banker edition. It's important to always remember SDK updates. We'll cover that. We got new admin features, pipeline, withdraw, e-consent on behalf of borrower. That's interesting. And then, of course, there'll be a persona setting for that, some tax transcript. Hey, we were just talking about tax transcripts. Zero-based par pricing. Yeah, we'll figure that out in secondary. Then there's feature enhancements. So we've got some new updates coming to forms and tools, new GSE fields and form updates. That'll be interesting. EDM, Encompass document management. Encompass eClose now available for all Docs Solutions users. That's probably some news. Contacts updates. Wow, I haven't seen a contact update in forever. Trade management for those using trades. Some more settings. We've got counseling provider update. AMI updates. That was a big thing that came out in the bar summary origination for AMI eligibility. Some API updates. We'll talk about that. Document, this as a reminder, the document and data automation and mortgage analyzers integration, also known as AIQ. They changed their name. We'll talk about that. And then we've got a whole bunch of fixes for 24.1, Encompass forms and tools. You can see all these fixes and what fixes typically mean. Goodness, a lot of fixes. That's awesome. What that means is typically that we've got workarounds that you've implemented that are no longer necessary. And I can tell you from experience, most companies that build out workarounds, even when Encompass is fixed, they don't go back and unwind their workarounds. It's just because everybody's too busy or they don't actually have documented what they did. So it's hard to go back to. All right, so let's get into the nitty gritties here. We've got, we just went through all this crap. All right. This is all just regurgitating the same stuff. SDK updates. For those that are still running SDK, kudos to you. Just make sure you download the new SDK for your version so that your SDK doesn't break when Encompass goes to 24.1, as it will. And you can see there's a link for all the install files, etc. More table of contents. All right, so new automation features. This first sentence says it all, gang, for 2024. 24.1 automation enhancements in the web versions of Encompass, new disclosure alerts and date fields are being introduced into Encompass. This is a big deal. So as I've been saying, if you don't have on your agenda list for the day, the week, the month, to get to Encompass on the web and check out what's going on there, you're going to be left behind. So definitely make time for that. So we've got new disclosure alerts. The alerts will be set up and managed in Encompass settings and triggered in Loan Files to desktop and web version. Enable lenders to ensure required data is completed for sending disclosures both manually and automated. That's a pretty cool call out right there. Usually don't see that. So there's lots of automated solutions out there for sending disclosures. And the one thing that you have to be careful about if you ever buy one of these automations is how the automation deals with pop-up alerts. So it'll be an interesting thing. I want you to read this sentence too. The alerts and disclosure date fields are part of a broader initiative to provide automation features in the web version of Encompass. AKA, ICE is going to be figuring out a way to help you automating initial disclosures in Encompass. No third-party tools required. That's pretty exciting stuff. Blah, 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 blah. Read the release notes. We've got new disclosure compliance alerts. We've got app disclosure requirements and 3-day disclosure requirements. That's new. We usually have the initial disclosures, right? But unfortunately, some states require disclosures at time of application, like the day, not 3 days, but the day. So check with your compliance team. And these might actually help you get your application disclosure requirements completed better. And here's a screenshot of what that looks like. Looks like we've got field triggers HMDA.x29. So we're gonna be interested. It's gonna be interesting to check that out. As a reminder, make sure when you go through here, select the correct milestones for these alerts. Obviously, you don't need send to processing to fire because it's well after. So just a reminder, your alerts, make sure they're firing at the correct and appropriate milestones. Here's the ad application. There's that HMDA.x29. There's the one we're usually used to, 3142. So what I take this away from is to say they're changing our paradigm. They're having us look at HMDA.x29 as the application date for the app disclosure requirements versus 3142, which is like the 3-day TRID requirements. Maybe there's something we don't know. So definitely check with your compliance teams on how important this is for you. So in addition to these alerts, to existing alerts, redisclosure and redisclosure loan estimate have been updated with new fields. They are moving to automation. This is awesome. So basically to redisclose a LE, you need to make sure you've got email and you've got all these other dates. That's an enhancement. Again, these are native alerts, guys. If you don't have these enabled, why? And if they're not enabled for the correct milestone, why? Also, they put 3 days here. I don't agree with that screenshot. That should always be 5. And the reason why we always do 5 on these redisclosure is for the same reason we do 5 on the initial disclosure, to account for weekends or holidays. On your company calendar, remember, disclosure due dates are based upon your company calendar when you're open for operations, right? So 5, not 3, ICE 5. All right, so here's how the alert looks in desktop. And here's how the alert looks in the web. Pretty damn cool. That's new. That's a new thing. We'll have to check that out. Some important notes here on page 20. You can read all this, but basically make sure that when a loan is duplicated or borrowers are swapped, make sure that you read these bullets. Here's a call out. Disclosure tracking logs are not rechecked prior to the system reviewing loan again for the alert requirements. If you've duplicated a loan or borrowers are swapped. So, long story short, should you duplicate a loan? Usually not. Usually you'll copy with a template, so it's not duplicating. Duplicating means literally you go in as an admin, typically, or super, and you literally duplicate the file and everything gets duplicated. Borrower swapping is not an uncommon occurrence for a lot of situations, but it just goes to show how moving the borrowers doesn't move the disclosure tracking logs. There's not something that ties them together, so you want to keep an eye on that. Here's some notes about the app and redisclosure, just some updates to fields. So read those notes. That was on page 20. This goes into more details about the alerts. And if you're using the e-disclosure fulfillment service from ICE, make sure you go to page 21 and look at this bullet, third main bullet from the top. It talks about, it addresses how to deal with e-disclosure fulfillment fields. And There are web version release notes that we'll do separately to help you understand some of the automation enhancements on the web version, because that's why there's a web version. New fields are added for setting disclosures. So if you're the kind of company that likes to audit everything or report on everything, you got what's this for? You got 9 fields to add there. All right. Next one, Encompass pipeline. Archived loans no longer included by default in pipeline views. Okay. Wow, they actually put in their screenshot 255 folders in their test environment. That's saucy. So if you want to include archive loan folders, so what this is really telling me as an admin is make sure you go back in, and if you don't want loan folders to be automatically included in active loan searches pipelines, make sure you mark them as an archive folder, just a checkbox. And that way, when somebody selects all folders, it won't include archive loan folders. And of course, the archived loan checkbox is now a persona update in the pipeline tab. And guys, this is also important when we go through, admins mastering Encompass. This is why I go through and redo content every time there's a major update, because this did not exist in 23.4.0 whatever. This is a persona update. So now, as a reminder, this box will typically be unchecked whenever ICE adds in something new into a persona. It will typically be unchecked. And so by default, the art include is not selected and it is disabled for all non-admin. The checkbox will only be enabled for users with the required persona permissions. So it tells you that. So if you want your team to be able to access archive folders from, as of April 6th, you're going to want to go into everyone's persona to make sure that they update this. There you go. And then just do a call out here. Name change, expectation of experience changing. All right. And then you also, inside the loan file now. Oh, this is going to get interesting. So I wonder how some companies are going to deal with this. So forever, this loan banner, this native loan banner, hasn't changed, and now they're changing the loan banner. So I wonder how companies are going to deal with that. So if you're using a plugin from any company that uses this space over here in the top right of the loan ribbon, you just lost some extra space, which is why you should always check with your technology provider on how they're going to deal with updates. And you know who I'm talking about. All right, so these are just more settings. This one's talking about persona access to fields business rule to disable archive checkbox. All right, so at the persona level, if you allow them to go from the pipeline view, what this is talking about is this is the field 5016. If you don't want any persona to be able to check that box, you're going to have to write a persona access to fields business rule. So if you're not used to persona access to fields business rules, get familiar, because you're going to need to do that if you want them to update. Also, it's just a call out to the external reporting database. That's old tech. If you're using that, pay attention. That's on page 25. Okay, here's a new option to withdraw e-consent on behalf of a borrower. Again, I don't know the use case here. Maybe somebody calls you or sends you an email to opt out of e-consent. So this is probably where this came from. Usually this kind of stuff happens when a super large lender says to ICE, hey, I need this functionality in Encompass because, we have a problem. So if you look at the screenshot, it's in the admin tools, and it's in the, I'm going to blow this up. It's in the policy category. So again, this is another reason why in admins mastering Encompass, we go through admin tools again, because in the server settings manager policies category, allow withdrawal of e-consent needs to be enabled. You'll then now see on the screenshot here, there's going to be a new withdrawal consent button. I wonder how that's also going to be handled with other POS platforms that are outside native functionality, if or how they are going to support that native functionality. You can individualize the withdrawal. Again, I don't know how that works in real life. And to be able to see that button, you now have a new checkbox in the Forms Tools tab of every persona to allow them to withdraw e-consent. That's in the disclosure tracking tool, which is helpful. I mean, you're in the disclosure tracking tool, to be able to go down there and uncheck that is appropriate. Page 27, I'm probably gonna run out of time. I'll have to do a part 2. New requests for transcript of tax features. So Form 8821. We were just talking about I've talked more about the 8821 in the last week and a half than I have in the last 3.5 years. So apparently the 8821 has a new standard, and I've heard it's cheaper to run a 8821 than it is a 4506. I don't know that personally, but in any event, you can update everybody should be using the standard here for transcript request templates. Oh, that's new. So there's now a new section called transcript request template section. Type in it, you're going to create a template name, and you're going to, that's in the learn templates. This is brand new, guys. That's why we go through these release notes. So now you can define if you want that to be a 4506, a 4506T, a C, or an 8821. Definitely something to be checked out, because when you go into the request for transcript of tax, the other one is called non-class or classic or non-class, I guess non-class, I don't know. If it doesn't look like this, don't use it. So you're going to click add from template, and then you're going to pick your template, of course, and then it's going to fill in your information. I suspect that this is going to result in some extra work for those admins who created fields for the 4506. I hope those fields and those rules will continue to work, but you know, we'll have to wait and see what happens with that when that comes out. Let's see here, 1 second.
How they did them.
Yeah, I get that. So yeah, so if you're having trouble with the second bar pair on here, I don't know if this is going to resolve that problem, but certainly worth a look. And of course, you're going to go through and make sure the tax form's built out properly. Page 32, zero-based par pricing. So I guess companies are looking to offer basis points instead of par by channel, making it easier for borrowers to understand. I don't know. I guess again, I'm outside of this part. Just so you know, this is not supported in EPPS. So if you're listening to me or watching me do this thing on screen and you're using EPPS, this is not for you today, at least. This will be for other PPE platforms. In any event, you'd go through here on page 33 and configure your Encompass accordingly and see if that's going to work for you. There's an update to the lock extension fee. It's again relative to the zero-based par pricing. Also an update to the gain loss because of zero-based par pricing. Update to par pricing on lock request. So it's now giving you a new feature, and this where we are right now is in the secondary registration tool. When you get that lock to pop open, you've got the 4 columns. This is a micro screenshot of the base price and the adjusted base price, letting you know that you've got either a zero-based par pricing or you've got 100. Oh, that's what they're talking about. So zero-based par pricing, just so you know, some rate sheets are out there like instead of it showing 100 equals par, 0 equals par. So if it's less than 0, it means it's a cost. If it's more than 0, it's a credit. That's borrower-facing pricing. I guess they call it zero-based. I didn't know what the hell that term meant. In secondary, we all work off 100, meaning 99, meaning you're always working towards 100 to get the par. That's what the change is. So if you've enabled zero-based par pricing, this is what you're seeing. Okay, now this makes more sense. Whatever. And then of course you got a ton of functionality change because you're changing numbers. You're changing the basis of it, not to be confused with basis points. Dun. All right, so we've got some new fields added. We've got new Maven fields. These are fields that you can, of course, now review, report on, whatever you want to do. I'm sure they'll be added to the reporting database. They'll also be added to the ECS data viewer tool in a future Encompass release. And so that's really good for your closers. That's the reason why the data viewer tool is there, is for your closers to review what they've produced before they send that package out. And that's the major stuff that's getting updated. Now we've got some feature enhancements. We're going to keep trucking. Here's the table of contents, blah, 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 blah. There's the good stuff. So feature enhancement, new borrower level, first-time homebuyer fields added to borrower summary. So if you're the kind of company that loves to keep having a personalized, customized borrower summary, you got 2 labels and 2 fields now to address. They were already available on the ULDD PDD input forms, and now they're being displayed on the borrower summary. Obviously, that's in the current address category boxes. You've got a new 2-year treasury in the ARM index dropdown. I guess that's helpful for some folks. You've got a new lock field added to the subject. This is right here, subject loan unpaid principal balance amount. So if that's something that is important, this is on the interim servicing worksheet. So if you're not using the interim servicing worksheet, ignore this. If you are using it, this allows you to manually update this number in case you have to. Yeah, I can see that happening because some companies don't use interim servicing, but they still collect a payment. And so I could see somebody going in here and locking in that field and just manually typing in something. Authorized users. Reminder, persona access to fields. If you don't want people to have access to that, you got a persona access to fields to that button control in your business rules. HMDA application date field added to the HMDA information form. Application date, this goes back to the very first thing we talked about with that app application disclosures. This is that field that we're talking about. So there it is visualized on the HMDA information input form. Paid by fields can now be updated in linked loans. For those that are doing linked loans, you're probably cheering up and down for that. Updated calc for estimated construction interest for those doing construction loans. Hopefully this is going to resolve some calculation issues for you. You'll have to check your settings and see if it does. That's page 42. LTV percent and amortization schedule now rounded to 3 decimals on printed out. So I guess people didn't like the fact that it was resulting only in 2. They wanted 3. I don't know. Oh, they were rounded to 4? I thought they were 3. What do I know? So now there are 3. Hopefully people like that better. Additional checkboxes added to FHA LT and FHA management for your LDP SAM searches. I'm sorry, I didn't get a screenshot. So just make sure that you have now a no checkboxes added. So if you're running into workflow problems documenting whether or not you've done a search for LDP or SAM, you now have that functionality where a no checkbox can be indicated in the loan if you did not actually search for it. So I guess that could be cool. Encompass updated, provide web version of Encompass most current lock request days. Okay. Lock request form this causes inconsistencies. Encompass will be updated, provide a web version of the Encompass mode. Okay. We'll check out the web version release notes and see what this really means. I don't have a good context on that yet. Secondary lock tool updated with sell side pricing. If you're using EPPS, this is important if you're actually using secondary registration tool properly. This will be important because you can update the sell side pricing straight from EPPS instead of having to do it other ways. New GSE fields on form or on page 44. So if you're part of the ULDD tracking for different phases, this is going to address phase 5.1, making sure that Encompass is keeping up with the ULDD phases. This is all about ultimately getting into a standardized GSE format for delivery and servicing. This is an interesting one. Other funds collected at closing added to the ULDD. So Fannie, Freddie are trying to make sure that they document other funds collected at closing and what they were for. So you'll see that on the ULDD input form, both on the Fannie tab and the Freddie Mac tab. And then you've got some updates to the Freddie Treasury for whatever PMMS is. I have no idea what that thing is. If you're in secondary, I'm sure you do. We've got new fields added to the Ginny field. So anytime, if you guys are delivering and you're creating the ULDD and you've got these new fields, I can only imagine they're a requirement. So just make sure that you've got your workflow nailed down to get those required at a certain time. In the inspection field, new inspection field ID added. This is GSE additional data. So I know there's a ton of folks out there that are having to fill this information in. This is on the Freddie Mac additional data form. What would be interesting to me is, and these are extra verifications. So if you're working with Argyle or Freddie Mac AIM or Gateless, you would fill in your number that they gave you so that you can, when you deliver that into findings, it'll actually get picked up and the data from those sources will get sucked into the AUS. That's what that's all about. So these are just some of the providers that do that. And it looks like Argyle, Freddie Mac, AIM, and Gateless got added, which is cool. Here's that alert for, or here's that update for Encompass Document Management. EDM now allows eClose for all Encompass Doc Solution users. Authorized users can click the eClose button, blah, 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 blah. And here's an example of that on screen. We're on page 49. To go through that, if you're not using eClose, this is one of those things that is definitely somewhere in the mix for 2024 for you. At least if you're a lender, at least start figuring out how to do hybrid eCloses. If you're using like something besides Encompass to communicate with the borrower for document or applications, meaning another POS, this is one of those call out times where you don't have to pay extra to use what you already pay for in Encompass if you're, if you're leveraging the Encompass eClose. I would encourage you to check more, dig into more about the Encompass eClose if you're not familiar with it. Document file size no longer display in File Manager. Oh, okay, so the size isn't important anymore. I agree. Like that size thing, totally unnecessary. The column could be added to eFolder if you want. Honestly, I don't know why that's important. Maybe for offloading. Maybe it's important if it's like, a really large document and you're worried about knowing what the size is. EDM archive site decommissioned. If you're using EDM archive, it's gone as of April 6th. So hopefully you know that. Hopefully I'm not the first person telling you that. You can react accordingly. In the contacts, so this is interesting. This feature enhancement for the contact, this little clock thing, this was introduced like mid last year. And it gave you the ability to document if the borrower wanted to be able to be contacted by whatever method, if they if they agreed to accept text or SMS messages, and then also what time zone they're in, and then if they have any preference for day of time for contact. So now there's a new note section down there too. So something to be spoken to if you're not using the standard borrower summary origination and you don't have this information on whatever you're using, it's a call out to you at this point. You should check it out. Might be helpful. All right, we're going to continue on here. Trade management, loan trade, MBS pool updates. If you're using trade management, this will make some sense to you. If you're not using trade management, don't worry about it. Trade management, again, is used if you want to deliver or purchase multiple loans from the same source at the same time. It's a good way. It's kind of like an internal SDK. Maybe now you could say internal API, but internal way to talk to multiple loans at the same time so that you can transfer pricing and secondary status of those loans all at the same time if they're combined in the same trade. We've got some Encompass settings updates. New Encompass admin tools, settings for automated data completion. So we see a screenshot on here where now we've got a new category called automated data completion in the admin tools in the server settings manager. So the automated data completion is for home counseling and area median income. This is really good because actually I recently worked on a project to bring over broker self-generated disclosures for TPO Connect, and it automatically runs the home counselor. So now looks like as of 24.1, you'll be able to do this internally. So you don't need any home counselor extra plugin anymore. If you're out there, you got a home counselor plugin, get rid of it. Don't just let it sit there because you don't have to pay for it. Get rid of it. One less tool in your Encompass means your Encompass runs that much faster. So you can go through here. That's page 52. And here's how you get your home. So it starts at page 52. That'll go through your home counselor piece, how to set that up properly, and then your AMI goes over to page 54, how to set that up properly for automation. Continuing on here with those updates, redisclosure for the closing disclosure, alert now recognizes construction loans as a regular. When considering APR tolerance, this is important for construction loans. If you don't do construction loans, again, don't worry about this. But if you are doing construction loans, this is a big deal. It's on page 55. Make sure that you update. Typically, construction loans will be 1/8 for regular and 1/4 for irregular. That allows for APR tolerances to be a little bit more variable without having to redisclose. So that's helpful. Continuing here, update to data field data entry business rules for manner which title will be held dropdown. Oh, this is cool. So what that means is now that if you've got, let's say you don't allow for pension, person in pension. So now you can make sure you create an editable dropdown list and a persona access to fields for, in this case, field 33. So that you only show the options that you want. That's how a persona access to fields business rule can work. And then you also have a, they're going to drop in a pre-configured rule. You can click reset if you want to put all the original variables down there. I wonder if that's going to work for like other drop-down fields. I wonder. So here's an ongoing screenshot, and basically it just reminds you how to create if you want to deactivate the pre-configured rule and create your own custom rule using field 33, you can. Talks about trade updates, configurable. Oh, so if you're using TPO Connect and you've actually deployed the configurable workflow template setting for your TPOC, turn to page 57 and check out the details for the updated search. That'll be interesting because you'll have to be able to search for categories and subcategories. Pretty cool. Looks like APIs have opened up a little bit for the state license IDs to be populated via a create loan API call. That's important to make sure that when the loan is created, the state license ID fills in properly. Apparently that was missing from the API, the create loan API. Let's see here. We've got Encompass data and document automation and mortgage analyzer integration. Again, this is old AIQ, right? So if you're used to AIQ, that's the new name. There's some new fields in there. Those that don't use AIQ, move on. Additional updates, update to Encompass autosave. I'm only laughing because I totally have a thing about autosave. And my problem, for those that have never heard me say this, but autosave is great as long as you're the last person or the first person to go in there after autosave happens. But if I'm in a loan and I get disconnected automatically while I'm in that loan, please go back into the loan right away. Because if anybody else goes into that loan, does work, and then you go into that loan and replace your autosave data, it vaporizes their work. It's one of my biggest call outs for why autosave is a problem. ICE is continuing to R&D it, which is interesting. So now anytime you perform an e-consent request, e-disclosure, any of this stuff, Encompass saves the data before triggering the external updates. Actually, I misread this. I'm so triggered by autosave. I'm being stupid. So basically, it's automatically going to save the file when you do any of these 6 actions. Having said that, if that's not something that you like or we're aware of that is going to be happening, keep that in mind. I could see, some people who might go and do some of these things and then don't want to save the file for some reason. You're no longer going to have that option. So if on page 59, if you do any of these 6 new things, Encompass will automatically save. That's not the auto save tool. That's just letting you know it's automatically going to save the file whether you like it or not. All right, moving on. Here's that AIQ updated. Again, it's now called ICE Data and Document Automation. There's a loan axis. This is for the user interface for AIQ. It's been renamed. Encompass Help Online now opens in user's default browser. It used to open in Internet Explorer, which of course is no longer a real thing. So now it will open up in whatever your default browser, whether you're using Chrome or Edge or whatever. Encompass Help will now open. As a reminder, F1 to enable that. And I'm going to stop there because that's a great break. And then we'll come back for fixed issues on a separate recording. Let's get this stopped and